it's righteous. It's righteous, it's expansive, it gives me so much more than operating in the other regard, where I wasn't even thinking about this kind of thing. I was just going along, living my life in a really cruel way towards myself. I was being cruel to myself. And I'm not about that life anymore, guys. Hello there, my sweet little slices of sunshine. Thank you so much for joining me here on my channel. I'm very appreciative of your time and your attention on this. This video is sponsored by Aura. I'm very pleased to be able to say that, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that amazing platform a bit later in the video. So, as many of you know, I am a self-confessed self-love girly. I've tried living my life with it and I've tried living my life without it, and I know which one I prefer. So every single September, I have like a month-long review of how things are going with me, self-love wise. And I celebrate my wins. I have a look at where things are not going so well. Every single year, the review is different because I've been through different stuff. I've really changed in different ways. I'm struggling with different things. So year on year, it's interesting to see how I've grown and changed and learned from the year before. And it's a chance for me to really just be with myself, honor myself, witness very consciously how things are going in my relationship with me. And I strongly, strongly believe and firmly believe the most important relationship I'll ever have in my life, no matter how much I love my loved ones so much, the most important relationship is with me. If I'm not having a good relationship with me, everything else is likely to suffer in one respect or another. And so I really try and stay steadfast on that. And obviously, since 2014, I've been trying to take you guys with me. And I know a lot of you are very much up for it. So let's talk a little bit about what self-love looks like and the different ways that we can honor the journey that we're taking with it. Self-love is honoring your needs. That is first and foremost. It's honoring your needs. It's listening to yourself. It's witnessing yourself as an essential person in your story, not just an optional extra, not just someone that you can ignore or forget about or overlook or disparage, but actually somebody that matters. So if you think about how you treat somebody that matters in your reality, how you treat somebody that you love, that you care for, whose future you're concerned about or whose needs you're concerned about, when you're self-loving, that's also how you treat you. That's the idea. You don't deny your needs. You don't downplay your needs. You don't ignore yourself. You take care of your mental, physical, emotional, and material well-being. That is factored in to your decision making. When you're operating self-lovingly, you're making yourself a priority. When you're operating self-lovingly, you give yourself compliments and praise, and you accept the compliments and praise that you receive. You don't bat it away. You try to acknowledge that, like, this person is witnessing me and recognizing something good that I've done or that I've said. And so I'm gonna take that. I'm going to enjoy that, basically. It's the enjoyment of praise and credit and recognition. Self-love is setting boundaries for yourself. Self-love is knowing your limitations. Self-love is standing your ground and knowing that you are okay to do self-advocacy and getting better and better at self-advocacy. I think self-love, as well as just being like interested in yourself as a person, wanting to spend time with yourself, being interested in your opinions on things, being intrigued by your own thoughts, feeling that there is a value to your internal life and the structure of how you feel and what you've been through, honoring your story, like just finding yourself to be someone that is worthy of noticing. To me, self-love is giving myself the same grace and patience and dignity and respect as I give to others, making sure that I'm not locking myself out of that good stuff that I want for others, and the way that I operate with others, the patience that I strive to have with them, and the way that I feel I should conduct myself in relationship to other people. I'm trying to also give that to me at all times. And when I screw up on that, when that doesn't go well, I look at that and I try to correct it. I try to amend it. I apologize to myself. That is something huge. That's something huge. Apologizing to oneself, I think, is just like it was such a narrative shift for me. It was just so big. And now it's second nature. Now I'm like, whoa. Hey, so I'm sorry. I shouldn't talk to you like that. That's not okay. That's not going to help anything. Please accept my apology, babe. Let's continue on in better relationship, in right relationship with each other, damn it. Self-love is being kind to yourself. It's letting yourself pursue both joyful and restful situations. It's thinking about what would be best for you if you need amendments made or changes or adjustments based on what would be easier for you, what would make it more safe for you. So you don't bully yourself, you don't demean yourself, you do not put yourself last on the list all the time in every situation. You are not permanently self-sacrificial. You don't feel you owe somebody an explanation for living, breathing, doing what you want to do. I think all of these things can have a massively positive effect in so many different areas of our lives. And of course, it's something we need to keep addressing and coming back to and like looking at and saying, what happened there? You know, and what do I want to have happen the next time? Hello, darlings. This is the Aura sponsorship portion of the program today, and I'm very, very excited to talk about it. So Aura is an all-in-one sleep and wellness app. It's incredible. It's used by 7 million users. It won the Best of Apple award. It's a tasty app. There's a lot going on with the Aura app. You've got sleep stories, you've got ASMR, you've got live coaches doing sessions on everything from CBT to breath work. You've got, what else have you got? There's incredible meditations. Like, it's ridiculous. You can track your moods on there. If you don't know what you want on the Aura app, you can just tell it how you're feeling, what mood you're in, and it will curate for you some things that you might want to check out. So even if you're not really sure what you need, Aura can let you know what you need. I've personally found Aura to be very magical for my self-love journey. Sometimes I'm not really sure what resource I want or what I want to do. I just know that I want to spend some time with myself. I want to click back in. I want to center into what is going on with me. I want to feel grounded. I just want to feel calmer. And I think Aura just always has something on there that interests me and grabs my attention. As I explained to you guys last time I did an Aura sponsorship video, I've been using the sleep stories to get my circadian rhythm back in order, which I think is very self-loving. And I've been really enjoying attending the live coaching sessions and getting some of them booked into my calendar on Aura so that I get a notification when coaches go live, and then I can come and partake of their education and the resources they're providing. So really, I feel like when you have the Aura app, you constantly have a tool that promotes self-love to you, that reminds you that you're being more self-loving, that you're being gentle with yourself, that you're spending vital time with yourself, you know, and giving yourself something that is so good for your emotional well-being. So if this sounds good to you and you want to grab the Aura app, you can click the link in the description and that will entitle you to a free trial so you can check everything out. And if you're feeling bold, do the 30-day meditation challenge, okay? I've done it, so there's no excuse, all right? Do the 30-day meditation challenge, very self-loving. And you also get 25% off your subscription as well. So free trial, 25% off subscription if you want to go ahead and get one. Let me know how it goes. I know that quite a few people have gotten into Aura from my Aura sponsorships and are having a really good time with it. So yeah, let me know what you enjoy about it. Thank you, Aura, for sponsoring this video. Much love to you, and let's get back to it. I used to berate myself fairly constantly. I also used to starve myself. I used to harm myself physically. I definitely wanted to throw myself away, abandon myself. I did not make good decisions for myself on a regular basis. I did not really cherish and nourish my desires and my needs and my thoughts. I did not prioritize myself. And I very often did not take care of my material, emotional, physical, etc. needs. I wasn't doing that. And I know that lots of you are aware that that's a part of my story. And I think I have a tendency towards self-abandonment and self-destruction, and I've figured out the various reasons for that. And so the practice of self-love to me is an antidote to that stuff, because I know I don't want to keep on living like that. I just don't. You know, so much ugliness came out of it. I want to be with myself. I want to feel okay with myself. Not all the time. I'm not being totally unrealistic here. I'm not saying that I want a picture perfect, rosy relationship with myself in every situation. Obviously, I get frustrated with myself. Obviously, I feel sometimes I've let myself down. Obviously, sometimes I need to give myself a stern goddamn talking to. And that happens, okay? I think that can be self-loving too. I think giving yourself a stern talking to is highly self-loving, as long as you give yourself the same respect, patience, and understanding as you give others, okay? You're allowed to get real with yourself about something that you fucked up on, but what you're not allowed to do is put yourself in the doghouse, like, for a limitless period of time. What you're not allowed to do is speak to yourself in ways that you would never dream of speaking to anyone in your life who let you down, who screwed up, who made a mistake, who genuinely didn't mean it, you know? So it's really just like keeping the same energy for you, having the same standards for yourself. And I think that very often when we look at a deficit of self love in our lives, we look around and we're like, wow, I treat myself abominably. Why am I doing that? Why is that a thing? Why do I deserve that? Um, so yeah, this is the thing. I've had a journey with it. It's a continuing journey with it. It will be a lifelong journey with it. And I value and respect it so much. I really, when I think about the self-love lens, the way of seeing things that operates from a place of self-love for me, I just think, yeah, that's what's been life-saving. That's what's been important. And when I feel like I've fallen off that, I need to come back to it. I must return to it. It's like a discipline. Self-love is a discipline. And it's righteous. It's righteous. It's expansive. It gives me so much more than operating in the other regard, where I wasn't even thinking about this kind of thing. I was just going along, living my life in a really cruel way towards myself. I was being cruel to myself. And I'm not about that life anymore, guys. I'm just not. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And I honor the fact that I've witnessed that and recognized that. And I want to come to like living my life like this, where I'm an ally to myself, where I don't think I'm perfect and I don't expect myself to be perfect, but I do acknowledge that I'm human. I'm human. I'm not a villain. I'm not a demon. I don't mean some of the things that I do or say or how I operate, like I'm trying my best, sometimes in quite difficult circumstances. And I have to keep hugging myself, honoring, encouraging myself and saying and giving myself pep talks. I give other people such motivational pep talks. How many of you give other people the most insanely devotional and motivational and wondrous pep talks where you really lift them up? Does anybody else do this? I do this. Sometimes a friend will message me and say, can you voice note me a pep talk, babe? I need to feel like I can do the day. And I'll gladly give of myself in that way. And realizing, coming to the point in my life where I was like, I want to give myself some pep talks. Like, yeah, sure, I can ask somebody else. And it's important to have that reciprocity in relationships for definite. I do not want to have people in my life who think they can ask me for a pep talk, but I can never ask them. Although it might not be their strength, it might not be their forte, and that's okay. But, of course I can have that reciprocity in relationship. But like, where's my great words for me? I'm the only one that really knows the depth of what I've been through. I'm the only one that was there through it all. I was there with me. It was me. Sometimes it was me very much alone, dealing with a whole mess of crap. So why would it not be the case that I would want to say to myself, like, baby, you've come so far. You've done so much. You're going to get up and you're going to keep going. And I love you for that. You could have made so many other decisions, but you're making this one right now, and that means something. It just means so much that I can say that to me. I just need to be able to say that to me. I love my pep talks to myself. Whatever you're going through, whatever's happening right now in life, no matter how much of a weird liminal transitional period you're in, no matter what has befallen you, no matter what you're dealing with, you can practice self-love. The self-loving choice is always available. So whatever problem you're facing down, whatever decision you're making, you can do it from a self-loving place or a not so self-loving place, right? Again, like I said, it's a lens that you put over every situation that you're facing, everything that you're examining, every decision that you're having to assess. You can say, okay, well, let me do this with self-love in the recipe. I want to do this from a place of knowing that self-love is a vital ingredient. It's a vital component of this. So how can I make this decision self-lovingly? And it's not to say that everything always has to go your way. You never have to make compromises with anybody. Everything always has to be perfect according to your vision. Obviously, compromise is a part of human interaction. It's a part of living in this reality. But even compromise can be done really with self-cruelty and in a deeply self-sacrificial way, and in a way where you don't stand up for yourself. Or it can be done in a way that feels like it still includes you, it's still fair to you, and it's still something that you can see yourself coming to and aligning with. It doesn't feel like it's a betrayal of self to make that compromise. And so even with compromises and even with things that you're doing that you don't want to do, or that you're feeling like, why do we have to do it that way? Or like, why does this person want me to do this with the weekend? Or Why do we have to move here? I don't want to, or whatever it is, whatever's happening, you can still say, okay, I want to compromise. I want to make this compromise because I love this person, or because this is what I need to do to get to where I want to be ultimately, or whatever. But I'm not going to compromise in a way that is self-sacrificial, in a way that is cruel to myself, in a way that ignores what I might need to make this better for me. So whatever you're going through, you can pursue rest and joy and play, and you can pursue dignity and respect for yourself, no matter what the situation. And that's something that I had to really come to, because when I first started thinking actively about like, okay, I need to love myself. I want to love myself. I want to care for myself. I want to include myself. I would have all of these situations where I would think, oh, well, I can't be self-loving in this situation. That's not possible. But actually, it's possible to bring self-love with you on every journey. It's possible to put it into everything that you do. And I think that was really important for me to get to grips with. The self-loving choice is always available. You are never locked out of it. You can always reassess something and say, hang on a minute, what if I did that from the angle of self-love being included in this picture? What would I do differently? What would I ask for? What would I say? What would I not say? How much energy would I spend or not spend in this situation if I was putting the lens of self-love over it right now? And very often you realize like, okay, yeah, there are a few changes I would make. There is something that I need. There is something that I need to assure myself of. There is a question that I need to ask, there is a compromise that I need to request. There is some negotiation that needs to happen so I can feel okay with this too. And so I don't feel I'm putting myself out so unbelievably and so completely that it could never be considered self-loving. The way I'm operating, doing this thing could never be considered self-loving. What would happen if I instated self-love as a priority of mine, as a boundary of mine, as a requirement for my life choices? And you see that like, wow, okay, that's a different avenue. It looks different when I think of it that way. And you can do it right now with something that you're going through right now, something that you're grappling with. You can just look at it and say, okay, how would I deal with this if I made the commitment to love myself? If I made the commitment to honor and respect myself the way I do anyone that I honor and respect, how would I treat myself in this situation? What would I advocate for my fucking self? And it really makes you realize that like, oh, wow, there's all these avenues I didn't consider. There's all these things that I could do for myself that I didn't do, that I haven't been doing. And I can come to that. I can look at it. That's so powerful. It's so powerful, and it's something that I've managed to make more and more as though it's second nature, but it wasn't always so. It wasn't always so. It used to be very, very hard. Finding the groove in the wood with like a daily practice of self-love is actually no easy feat. I didn't find. I knew in my soul it's what I wanted, and I knew it was right for me and everything. But it takes a while to bring that stuff in. It takes a while to make it so that it is a part of your consideration when you're making decisions or having conversations or, planning things, whatever it might be. It's like, oh yeah, no, wait, self-love. Let me put the self-love lens over this situation and then figure out what it would look like, That did not come as second nature to me for a really long time. And there are still ways in which I have to be like, oh wow, I'm totally not operating from that perspective in this situation. And I don't worry about like, well, why not? I can't believe I'm not operating self-lovingly. I just notice and course correct. Notice and course correct. That's it. There's no judgment. There's no sense of like, oh, I've fallen off, from this. It's not that. I just go, oh yeah, self-love. Reroute the sat nav. Self-love is a part of this equation, self-love is guiding me. It is my compass in this situation. I forgot that it was there, but now I've remembered. Now I can course correct. The way that I always think of it is that self-love is not a switch that you flick. It's not a destination that you arrive at. It's not a finality. There's not a finality to it where you say, oh yeah, now I live like this, It's a daily practice. It's a daily lens. It's a commitment that you keep reforging, essentially. You just keep reforging it. You keep bringing it in. And yes, it does become more natural and more intuitive to bring it in. But I think there are always times, because of the sheer amount of challenges that we deal with and different situations that we're in, there's always times, isn't there, where it's like, I had a loose grasp on self-love at that moment, but let me bring it back in now. And so You're constantly kind of like just inviting it to the party, essentially. The idea is that you get better at involving it. You get better at putting that lens over. You get better at committing to the daily practice every morning. As soon as you wake up, you just think, okay, I'm orienting myself in the direction of self-love right now, today. That's what's going to happen. And I'm going to approach my issues and my conversations and my choices like that, you know? I said earlier about the first time I apologized to myself. That was big. That was a paradigm shift for me, knowing that I could apologize to me. And I had never apologized to me before. It was the first time, and it was like a cannon went off in my head. And I was just like, yeah, I need to apologize to myself there. That's what makes sense to do. And I remember I would like berate myself. I'd be really cruel to myself. I'd shame myself completely. I would be totally unforgiving towards myself. And then I would go, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. That's not what I mean. You know, like, I know that you're going through a difficult time. I know you're trying your best. And I didn't mean to talk to you like that. And then I would talk to myself like that again, like 10 minutes later. It's sometimes out loud. Okay. I'm an out loud talker. And the stuff that I've said to myself out loud, I'll address myself. I'll be like, you fucking stupid bitch. And then I'm like, whoa, I would just never talk that way to a friend of mine who was going through something difficult, who was fucking things up and trying to make the best of a bad situation. You know, and I know that we can make mistakes, we can do things wrong, we can be underhanded, we can be manipulative, we can be not the best version of ourselves, we can be passive aggressive, we can be whatever it is. And I know that, and like I said, stern talking to very much, but like, I can't afford, none of us can afford to bitch ourselves out on a consistent basis, because for as long as we're here with ourselves. I can't just walk away from myself and be like, you know what, that's it. I never want to speak to you or see you again. I've got to make this one work, because this one's for life. I've got to make this one work. It's almost like I have more obligation to this particular relationship than any other, because it won't go away until I die. I'm always with me. And so I can either be with me, having a good time, getting on okay, working with myself, being an ally to myself, or I can go completely the other direction, like I used to, and just be like a total bitch to myself all the time, and just so nasty and dismissive and disgusted. And it's like living with a bully inside you. Like, who wants that for their life? I just can't. I won't do it. So I feel like, you know, it becomes easier to put the lens over. And the idea is that it becomes more intuitive. And as you go along, it's something that you return to with greater ease. So yeah, I would apologize to myself. 10 minutes later, I'd shit talk myself again. And I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. That is not helping. That is not nice. That's not kind. That's not trying to understand what is happening here. I'm trying to get through something. I'm trying to deal with it. I've made some mistakes. I need to fucking sort it out. But bitching myself out, bullying myself, desecrating my character is not helping. And so I'll come back to myself and I'll be like, sorry again. Sorry, I'm going through a lot, but I don't want to talk to you like that. That's not helpful. It's not kind. And it's not what I mean. That's really actually not what I mean. You know, it can't be, unless I want to live in this purgatory of being around somebody all the time, me, that I don't want to be around, that I don't like, that whose motives I question, whose performance I berate constantly. And I just wouldn't want that for anyone else. Why would I want it for me? If somebody told me I'm living with someone who, when I fuck up and I'm late for something, or I lose something, or I didn't perform adequately, they tell me you're a fucking stupid bitch. You're a fucking stupid bitch. I would be like, yeah, no, don't live with them anymore. Don't. That is awful. I'm so sorry you're going through that. That is terrible. And yet there I am living with myself. You fucking wanker. Like, you're pathetic. You're pathetic. And I'd be like, taking that on. I'm taking that into my energy field. I'm recycling that shit on a loop. And it's just like, why? No. No. If somebody told me the story of someone behaving like that with them, I'd be disgusted. And yet for me, it's just a Tuesday. Can't do that, guys. I can't do that anymore. You know, I decided to choose differently. I decided to choose again. Everybody has a self-love journey. You know, it's just different for each one of us, how that's going and where we are with it. What if you imagine your self-love journey as a timeline? Okay. It's the timeline of your life, and the green bits represent times where you made self-loving choices, you behaved in a self-loving manner, you brought self-love into your consideration of what you wanted to do or not do. And then there are red areas on the timeline of your life, and that's where you behaved unself-lovingly. You did not factor yourself in. You were cruel to yourself. You made choices that didn't give yourself respect and dignity, right? When you look at that timeline, you can really witness why certain things were happening. You can witness how much of your life you've spent not in allyship to yourself, and you can make changes for that. Now, some people's parents modeled self-loving behaviors, and so those people, in many cases, have more of an opportunity to be able to take on those self-loving behaviors that they saw modeled when they were growing up. For many people, their caregivers couldn't or wouldn't practice self-loving behaviors. They didn't make self-loving decisions. They didn't respect themselves. They didn't pursue dignity or self-advocacy for themselves. They didn't pursue restful or joyful situations, right? All of these things, they didn't take care of their needs. And so for a great many of those people, it is harder to factor in because of that spongy foundational time when you're young, where you model what you learn from the people around you. You copy what your caregivers do. You understand reality from that perspective, and only in terms of that perspective, before you kind of get much other input, really, particularly. So maybe in your early life, you witness that there were unself-loving behaviors coming in. In your teens, you get more sovereignty. You get to go out and do things for yourself to one degree or another. Sometimes you have to really fight for that sovereignty. Sometimes you have to lie and sneak out of your room at night to get that sovereignty. But you start taking on influences. You start like really trying to figure out who you are aside from the reality that you were raised in. During that time, there's a great potential to be self-loving and to make self-loving choices, but there's also a dangerous amount of opportunities for us to be unself-loving in the relationships that we're in, you know, our relationship with substances that we're experiencing, that we're being introduced to, like all of these things, you know. So your childhood and your teens are quite a complex time, I think, because you could be practicing perhaps internally quite a bit of self-love, but in terms of what you're dealing with externally, you're usually very much still under the control of your caregivers to one degree or another, and you kind of have to go with what they want for you. And so there is that kind of battle sometimes. So you know, you might witness that like internally you gave yourself quite a lot of credit and praise. You were interested in yourself. You tried to take care of your needs, but also there was all this other shit happening that meant that self-love went out of the window in ways that it wouldn't have done if you could have made different decisions, but you couldn't make different decisions. In your teens, sometimes you might lose yourself, you know, because you might become more interested in your friends or your first great love or the celebrities that you idolize or whatever. And it's hard to figure out where to plant yourself in your identity as well. So sometimes you might practice great levels of self-sacrifice to achieve something that isn't even you, so you can be perceived in a certain way that isn't even to do with you. And so when you look back over that early part of the timeline, when it comes to the relationship with self-love, you're kind of looking at like, what influences did I have that were self-loving? How did I see it being modeled in the stories that I read or the people that I knew? And where were the areas where I was taught by society or by my caregivers or whatever that self-loving is a selfish thing to do, that it's not okay, that it's antithetical to everything I should believe in? Whereabouts was I taught that I get ahead more in life if I abandon myself? If I don't make self-loving choices, I gain success, or I gain friends, or I gain a good reputation, a good status, you know, I look better in the eyes of my parents. If I do these things that are essentially psycho-spiritually wounding me, I get access to these things that I feel like I need to feel loved, right? Or to feel seen. So when you're looking at that area of the timeline, you might even find that there were certain moments where you reached for self-love against all the odds, and you tried to instate it in situations where it was like a barren wasteland where self-love was concerned. Like, it was very hard to access it and practice it, but you tried. You obviously had faith in the fact that you wanted to be a friend and ally to yourself, even though that was supremely difficult to achieve, you know? As you go on past your teens and you keep going with your timeline, you can see tons of different green areas and red areas there, you know? Sometimes there are gigantic red areas, and that's where an entire phase of your life was distinctly marked out by a lack of self-love. And sometimes those long phases can come from like staying in a situation that didn't honor you, staying in situations that made you feel unhappy, because you felt like that's what you had to do, that kind of thing. So you might be able to see sort of like large phases where self-love was not prevalent whatsoever, because the very situation that you were living in and the very situation that you were trying to maintain and give yourself to was giving nothing back to you and wasn't healthy for you. So seeing that can be quite sobering and quite jarring, and you can look at it and be like, wow, I had very little access to the awareness that I could put the lens of self-love over my reality at that time. And that's really sad. Sometimes there is a mourning to be done when we look through our self-love timeline, because we just think, wow, so many years without that good shit. Damn, so many years not holding my hand, not sticking up for myself, not taking care of my needs. And it's really important not to get stuck there and not to shroud yourself in it and not to get like super 5 of cups, shadow 5 of cups about it. Because we need to be able to say, okay, then that's modeling what I don't want. That's a clear example for me of what I don't want to have continue. Sometimes we spent years and years ignoring our intuition. Sometimes we spent years and years making the same crappy, dreadful mistakes without really doing much to deal with that, So it can be, like I said, sobering, but I think it's also vital insight. It also helps to show us where we don't want to go and how we don't want to operate in future scenarios. Sometimes there are areas on the timeline that are just like one decision, just one very acute memory of one decision. You said no when you meant yes. You said yes when you meant no. You said you agreed with somebody else's plan for what something should be, and then you felt like you had to go through with it. You decided not to do this thing for your health or your well-being, or like this obligation that you had to yourself that you ignored, and there were consequences from that. So your self-love is just this massive journey that began when you were born, and you can see actually all the times that you fought to love yourself, that you loved yourself even though it wasn't the popular thing to do, even though maybe sometimes it didn't win you any friends out of it because people wanted something different from you. You can see the times where you had really like romantic renaissances with yourself, where you were deeply self-loving, and you can also see sometimes where that fell off. And you can see why. You can look at the reasons. You can be like, that was a really self-loving phase of my life where I was prioritizing myself and I was putting myself first. And then this terrible thing happened to me and I fell off, or I got into this relationship that wasn't healthy and I fell off, So you can actually see how that ends up happening. When you look at the timeline, you can actually see a lot of the reasons. You can identify the reasons why you were being unself-loving. You were berating yourself. You were abandoning yourself. You weren't factoring yourself in. You might know that your relationship with your own body has been unself-loving, and you might realize that that is because, like the way that you perceive your body. You might realize that that's because of parental conditioning. You might realize that's because of one comment that was made to you in the playground at school. You might realize that's because of media messaging that you've been taking on. You actually can identify the reasons why there are these red points in your life journey where there was a lot of unself-loving stuff coming into your decision making, or the way you talked to yourself, the way that the scenarios played out, So I think it's good to look at like, okay, what was behind that? What happened to make me ignore myself, abandon myself in that, berate myself, be cruel to myself? Are there underlying reasons why that happened? It's good to know that, because as you go forward in your life and you decide, I'm going to be self-loving from this point on, you need to know what are the things that actually might pull you away from that, or might make it more difficult to make self-loving choices, so you can be aware of that shit. A lot of it is just about awareness, pretty standardly. If you look at your timeline and you think, yeah, that was an unself-loving time in my life because I was around a friend that was really domineering, or maybe my partner's family was really domineering, or like I was around people that had this particular type of personality where I felt that they overpowered me, and I felt that if they didn't get their way, then that would be some kind of a big problem. So I felt like it was better to just keep my mouth shut and just go with what they wanted, even though it wasn't what I wanted in my soul, right? You can look at that and say, okay, so domineering personalities are something that makes it more difficult for me to be self-loving. If I feel that it's very important for somebody else to get their way, and that if they don't get their way, there's going to be a bigger problem, that's when I tend to make myself small. I shrink myself down. I shut myself up. So I know that that is a trigger for self-abandonment. That is a trigger for letting go of my own hand and saying, oh, you know what? Okay, now I'm not factoring my needs in at all. If other people have very strong ideas, they have very strong desires, they want everything their way, that's when I tend to get unself-loving and I just let them have their way. It's important to know that so that we can start to witness it, look at it and say, okay, well, what is my plan of action should that ever occur in the future? Because I know that's something that is difficult for me. You might see something on your timeline where there's a lot of red, okay? There wasn't a lot of self-love going on in any regard. And you can think to yourself, I know why that was. It's because something awful happened, you know? I lost my home, I lost my job, somebody died, I had an accident, I had an illness. And when you look at that, you can say, okay, that was the trigger, that made things really difficult for me. I need to know that that's something that can make me fall massively off with my self-love and self-acknowledgement and self-respect, so that I'm aware that that creates added barriers for me. I'm aware that that's something that's going to have to make me be more cognizant of bringing self-love in on the daily and keep reminding myself of it and keep being with myself, because I know that that's something that can make me fall off of it and come away from it. You know, everything is information. Everything on the timeline is insight into what you can do to make self-love more intuitive and something that you insist upon more. When you're examining your self-love timeline, I don't think there should be any harsh judgment. I think it's basically just examining it to see what you can glean from it, just to understand, basically. You know, you're just there in a scientific capacity, all right? It's not about saying, oh God, look at that whole stretch of time where I didn't really factor myself in and I abandoned myself. Like, what a loser I must be. How stupid. I bet other people don't do that. No, it's literally just a tool. And I think it's been very useful for me. I like looking at the timeline and seeing those red and green parts. And sometimes they're at the same time, you know, because I could be in a situation that's causing me to really forget myself, ignore myself, be cruel to myself or whatever. But I can see also when I look at the timeline that I was trying, like there was something inside me, there was some instinct inside me that was like, no, I want to be there for myself. I want to advocate for myself. I want joy. I want rest. I want to feel okay. And so I'm trying. And so I can see myself like punching up through the red with the green of self-love and being like, no, I want to plant something here. But then I can see that like there's a whole bunch of red piled on top of it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a hard time. That was bloody difficult. There was a lot of self-abandonment there, kiddo, and it's okay. Yes, I am my own kiddo, okay? I'm into self-parenting, all right? I have a video about that. I'll leave it down below. But yeah, I feel like that it's interesting to see how I fought for self-love despite what was happening, despite whatever else was going on. You know, like there were areas where it was really prevalent that I was trying to do that for myself. And I love seeing that. I love seeing that, like, you know what, I did try. I did go on that date with myself that day. I did speak up for myself in that situation. I did make that change. I did make that decision to stop that bad habit. Like, obviously, even though there was lots of stuff going on that could never be classed as self-loving, there were these certain moves that I was making. There were steps that I was taking. I was trying. It was evidently an instinct, but it was just like papered over by all this other crap. And obviously I was dealing with a lot, you know, so, but it's okay. I can see that I was trying, that I did mean something to myself. I did mean something to myself. Whenever I'm looking at the timeline of self-love, if you will, and I'm looking at like the green parts where it was there and I was managing to do the damn thing, I always think about what might have been helping me to do it as well. So not only can you look at what might have triggered you or encouraged you to abandon yourself or to be cruel to yourself, you can also look at what might have helped you to be more self-loving. What kind of conversations were you having? What kind of stories were you reading? What kind of media were you consuming? What kind of friends did you keep, you know? I think that is useful too. It's useful to see what aids self-love. And you can do self-love against every single fucking odd. People do that when they're desperately addicted to a substance and everything is going wrong and they're in debt and their family aren't speaking to them. And out of nowhere, they're just like, right, it's something different or death. It's now something different or death. That's how down to the wire it is. If you are a recovering addict, if you are in recovery, if you are in sobriety, if things were going very fucking wrong for you and you made that decision, I want to say that I honor and respect the bastard Jesus out of you. Like that to me is that punching up. It's saying, no, 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 there's something else. I can get to the next level. I don't have to stay down here. I love that. I find that so inspiring. I find that so inspiring because it's very, very hard to do. We know it's hard to do. We hear from people who can't do it, right? I watch a lot of interviews with addicts who are really, really struggling and they're really, really lost. And they know that they don't want this for their life anymore. But it's really hard to get into that room in the labyrinth, that part of the labyrinth where you say, I'm going to grasp this thin thread that still attaches me to me and the value of my life. And when you hear from people that got into that room and they did that, they actually claimed themselves back. I just think that's fucking inspiring as fuck, guys. I love that. That is just, it's everything, isn't it? I mean, I know people are kind of like, I know a lot of people groan when people bring up self-love, but that's just the reality of it and the sheer gritty life Greek drama of the fucking thing is that it can be that or death. It's kind of just like, and you start right at the beginning. It's not like you adore yourself and you're really impressed with yourself or whatever. You are dealing with shame. You are dealing with confusion. You are dealing with self-doubt. But something inside you is saying, I can do something different. I want this for myself. I dare to want something better for myself. And that's the beginning of self-love. It's not always like lists of reasons why you love yourself in a lavender scented bubble bath. I know it's real. I think self-love is really gritty. Coming from the situations that I came from with my mental health and my self-harm scars, they're all over my arms, baby. You probably can't see them in this fabulous light, and all of that stuff. I think self-love is hard as fuck. I don't think there's anything drippy and squishy and fluffy about it. I think it's like the fight for your life. It is the fight for your life, so I think seeing anything that helped you in that situation, anything you read, anyone you heard from, any little experience you had, something you saw in the street that made you think, I want to come back to myself. I want to value myself somehow, some way, with probably very little tools and resources and no idea how I'm going to make this work. In spite of everything, I'm going to do that. When you look at that, you can say, that was a positive variable. That triggered something good. So if ever I'm low again, if ever I abandon myself again, if ever I'm cruel to myself again, I can say, remember that thing you saw, remember that thing you read, remember that thing that happened, remember that discussion that you had that made you think that actually I need to be an ally to myself. Actually, it's not worth bullying myself and abusing myself because I've got to be with me until it's over. It can either be a good time or a not so good time, my loves. In terms of how you are with you. I know that there's like external situations, shit we have to deal with, systems we have to break that are much, much bigger than just us as individuals. But look, if you're not standing on your own side, if you're not on your own team holding your own hand, that's going to get even worse for you. Like at least make that right. I feel like that's just so important. So think about what inspires you to be self-loving. Think about the resources that inspire you to be self-loving. Think about the stories you've heard, just like I've been talking about now, of people who against all odds said, fuck this shit, I want something else. I'm going to start to support myself somehow in a way that I haven't been before, in a way that maybe I was never taught. And I'm going to do that. And please know in that moment that even if you do not feel and witness your own glory, when you decide that you're going to do that, and when you remember the positive associations that encourage you to do that, I witness your fucking glory. I witness it. I think that it's so, so healthy to just be with yourself. And again, self-love is not about thinking you're perfect. It's not about thinking you're always great. It's not about thinking you've got no shit to sort out, all right? It's not that. It's just realizing that, like, I don't want to treat myself like a tyrant. I don't want to be tyrannical and nasty and bullying towards myself because that has never helped or changed anything. That's not helping the universe expand. It's just making things feel even fucking worse. And you know what? There's a lot of people out there doing a lot worse shit than me. Why am I talking to myself like this? Why is my relationship with myself like this? Why does it have to be? Can't there be another way? And if you work with parts, if you work with internal family systems, if you work with archetypes, if you work with anything where you can see your psyche broken down into different bits of yourself, right? Different characters in the play of yourself. And if you want to know more about this, I've got a video about working with parts down below. Please go and watch it. I'll leave it down below for you. But if you work with parts, right? So if you see yourself as like the artistic bit of you, the inner child bit of you, the healer bit of you, the crazy fuck part of you, right? If you work with that, then you also have a very good avenue into understanding how to be self-loving, because your parts can be really self-loving for you in different ways. For example, right, my inner child is really, really interested in herself. I remember when I was a kid being fascinated by my own ideas and my own dreams and what I would make, like what art I would make and what my thoughts were about things. And so now when I'm bored of myself, or I think I don't produce anything original, or I think people are going to hate what I've produced, or whatever, I always think, no, you're cool. You're cool. You got something to say. You got that passion. Come on, baby. You make things. It's okay. You're allowed to make things. No one's going to die if you make things. Okay. It's okay. And I sort of like, I think I don't have an original thought in my head. Sorry, the window's open because it's hot, but there's a fly in here that wants to be with me because I'm magnetic. When I think I don't have an original thought in my head and, I'm just being down on myself, I try and go into inner child because inner child supports me there. Okay. The inner artist part of me, that wunderkind part of me that I talk about in the parts series, that part of me is very ambitious and very certain that it's okay for me to win and it's okay for me to succeed and it's okay for me to take time to produce my art and that my art is of importance, right? And that it's okay for me to have projects and to put things into my projects, right? I'm on my own side with that part of me. So I access that part of me. The part of me that is my inner teenager, she fucking stands up for me. She is tough. She is tough. She is angry. She advocates for me. She's very boundary driven because of everything she's been through and all of the shit she's had to deal with. So at about the age of 14, 15, I was riding for my fucking self. I had a lot of shit going on. I was doing very unself-loving things. I was self-harming and all of that kind of stuff. But there was this instinct in me that like, I have to ride for me no matter what. And I would be very like, don't touch me. Don't talk to me like that. I do not want to do this. You're driving too fast. Let me out of the car. I do not want to be in this car, right? I remember all of these different things I would do as a teenager that were very, very bold. I was advocating for myself. I was saying, no, you can't do that. You do not touch me. So I access that part of me. I'm like, you know what? I need that part of me right now because I'm not self-advocating. I'm not being there for myself. I'm not sticking up for myself. I'm not standing my ground. But my 15-year-old self, she will come in and be like, what the fuck is going on? Who's hurting you? What's happening? Who's not listening to you? I will not stand for this. So if you work with parts, that's another really, really good way to access the different parts of you that are going to be ride or die for you, that are loyal to you, and reforge that commitment with each of those parts. And those parts have, difficulties and shadows too, but the ways in which they show up for themselves or care for themselves or are interested in themselves or are gentle with themselves might not be the way you are able to do it right now. So lean into that part of you, access that part of you and be like, you know what? That part of me knows that the way I'm dealing with this is wrong. That part of me knows it's okay to hold firm to my boundary. That part of me thinks it's okay to rest and it's okay to play. It's okay to relax sometimes. So this part of me now that's feeling like overworked and like I don't deserve anything and like, this I can't have anything for myself. I'm going to let this part of me that knows it's okay come in and talk and say, no, it's okay. Right? So your parts can have a board meeting on your behalf and self-love can be born from that board meeting, my loves. If you're training yourself right now to make yourself a priority, to take compliments, to praise and encourage yourself, to stand your ground, to voice your limitations, to voice your boundaries, to go for what you want in life, to be fucking kinder to yourself. I see you, I witness you. You're in training and it's always training, like I said, it's not a final destination. Every day I wake up And at some point in the day, I'm like, I commit to self-love. What would be the most self-loving way to do this? When I talk badly to myself, I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. I know that's not helping anything. I know you're struggling. Let's think about what is just the next right action for now. And we'll go from there. You know, I try to counsel myself rather than being cruel to myself, right? All of these things, they don't just stay. There are things all the time that make me compromise my self-love. There's things all the time where I think I could just do this in an unself-loving way. It might be easier, it might be better, it might get me more attention, it might get me, you know, it might make me feel a certain way. And so all the time I have to be like, no, I've committed. Rerouting. The compass is self-love. No, right? So if you're doing that, whether you're finding it hard, whether you're finding it easy, whether you're only just beginning, I see you, I witness you. I want to know down in the comments, what is your journey with self-love? How are you doing with it? How do you feel like you want to do better with it and be more cognizant of it? And do you apologize to yourself? Do you make yourself a priority? Do you praise yourself and do you accept praise that is lavished upon you? Do you pursue joy? Do you pursue rest? How do you witness that that has changed for the better your relationships with other people? It's changed for the better your relationships to the projects that you're creating. It's changed for the better your sense of what your personal future could be. I really want to know. And if you've been down somewhere dark with self-love and you want to share it, and you want to share how you came back from that and really grasped self-love again and punched into the green of your timeline, please tell us. We could do with all of the tips and suggestions possible, and we could really do with celebrating each other's wonderful journeys of self-love and rerouting and coming to the compass, coming to the daily practice, putting that lens over whatever is going on in life. So let us know. I want to know. I want to read these comments. Much love, my darlings. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Much love. Don't forget to visit Aura, get your free trial and all that good shit. And yeah, blessed be. I will speak to you next time. Mwah.